Are you just surviving in life or are you thriving? Is everything just, it's all right? Or do you wake up like, yes, I love my life. I am flourishing. I feel like I can take my attention away from just the basics of food, clothing, shelter, making money, taking care of kids, running errands to what is my ultimate purpose in life? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? What are my values? Are you feeling like you have the headspace to do that and you have crafted and curated a life that allows that type of freedom? Maybe, maybe not. Well, in this episode, we are talking with Jenny Maenpaa all about self-actualization, goals, boundaries, the difference between therapy and coaching, and how to truly capture that essence of who you are using all of the different facets of your personality to move yourself forward towards your highest self. All right, let's go.
Welcome to the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast with Alea Harris. This is the place where you and your fellow empire-building entrepreneurs come to vanquish the burnout monster and boost your glow and cash flow with energy alignment techniques and tried and true marketing strategies. Since 7 figures won't get itself, hit that subscribe button and never miss out on your chance to skyrocket profits, tap into your intuition, and manifest your dreams. And now, your host, Powerhouse Story Brand Certified Guide, award-winning marketer, bioenergetic business coach, and Japanese whiskey lover, Alea Harris.
Human beings are motivated to make decisions based on whether those decisions will help them survive or thrive. Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller articulates this very well, and it talks about how you need to use words in your marketing messages that allow people to understand how you as a business owner are helping them survive or thrive. So, for example, as a marketing company, we write words that help you make more money. That is how we are helping you survive and thrive as a business owner. We are helping you avoid spinning your wheels, avoid feeling like you need to moonlight as a copywriter, and avoid being stressed out because you have writer's block so that you can stay in your zone of genius and get copy that converts your beautiful visitors and followers into valued ideal clients. That's what we do, right? That's how I articulate for our copywriting services, how we help you survive or thrive. But how do you articulate that to yourself? How does the way you live help you understand if you are surviving or thriving? Are you giving yourself those same type of messages? Are you able to say, hey, self, I am making this decision to make sure that you thrive, not just survive? Once you get survival out of the way, you transcend survival mode into thriving, into flourishing. Well, then what? And how large is that gap between the two of those things? I will say one of the strongest tools that we've covered on this podcast numerous times is boundaries. And we do touch on that in this episode with Jenny as well. Boundaries allow you to say, even within yourself, hey, self, I am going to thank you very much for getting me to this point where you have allowed me to thrive and survive. Sorry, where you've allowed me to survive. Now that you've allowed me to survive, I'm going to put the boundary on those activities so that we do activities that now allow me to thrive. If you don't do that, you will end your life in survival mode and you'll look back and you'll say, when did I ever really truly fulfill the agreements that I was put here on this planet and on this earth to fulfill? You need to make a conscious effort to do so. And you do that by setting boundaries with yourself and with others to invite in your blessings and to invite in people that work for you and invite out the things that are no longer serving you. With that, today's mantra is I use healthy boundaries to invite people and blessings in. I use healthy boundaries to invite people and blessings in. Say it with me. I use healthy boundaries to invite people and blessings in. I use healthy boundaries to invite people and blessings in. When you're able to understand that boundaries and structure and plans should be what support you rather than making you feel overly rigid, that's when you can make intentional decisions to thrive and flourish in life. Today, we're talking again with Jenny Maenpaa all about that and a bunch of other things that are truly amazing. And I know, like every single episode, I'm going to go away from this and have to do some serious internal homework. Jenny is the founder of Forward in Heels, which is an intersectional feminist therapy practice that empowers all women to stand tall and own their worth so they can light up the world. In her 20s, she knew that she had high functioning anxiety. She was fast paced. She was moving and grooving, but that also led her down her own path of self discovery. And now she's in her mid 30s and she gives other women in particular the type of knowledge and peace and internal space that she wished that she had had when she was in her 20s. She also does a whole bunch of other pretty cool things in the world that she's going to get into in this episode. All right, let's dive into talking with Jenny.
This episode is brought to you by Bioenergetic Business Coaching by Flourish Marketing. Do you wake up feeling tired? You can't build your empire if you're cranky and exhausted. If you're fed up with fighting a losing battle against the burnout monster, it's time to fix the root causes of your issues and get aligned. Turn up the wattage on your glow and cash flow with effective business strategies. Bioenergetic Business Coaching is for growth-getting entrepreneurs who know they need to make a change to see better results and reach their goals. If you want to unblock your energy and unleash abundance, head to www.flourishmarketing.co/coaching to become a client. Now's your chance to step into the role of CEO, Chief Energy Officer, and flourish in business and life. Go to www.flourishmarketing.co/coaching to get started.
Hey, Jenny, thank you so much for being here as a guest on the Flourishing Entrepreneur podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I'm so happy to be here. It is a new year. I'm not going to say new me. I'm going to say like same me plus one.
Oh, there we go. I love that. I love that. Me plus, right? So yes, because we are recording this at the beginning of January 2022, so everything feels fresh and sparkly. But you, my friend, are not fresh and sparkly into what you do. You've been doing this for a while. So why don't you tell the audience in your own words what you do and what problem you solve in the world?
Yeah, so I always joke that I became the person I needed in my 20s and couldn't find. So I am a licensed clinical social worker. I run a group therapy practice. And in 2022, we are moving into also workplace wellness, which includes office offerings, workplace initiatives. So we work with women experiencing high functioning anxiety, perfectionism, and imposter syndrome to help them move
Mm.
past the endless to-do lists and gold stars into true happiness and fulfillment with their lives. And I always say, like, where were you when I was 22?
I love that. And that's perfect for this podcast because we focus on helping entrepreneurs flourish in business and in life, beating the burnout monster, hopefully never having a tango with that burnout monster to begin with. And it sounds like you can offer a lot of insight to us, especially around the techniques and tools that you have used personally to avoid burnout and stay in alignment, or what you have used for your clients. Do you have any of those techniques and tools that you're able to share with us today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, like burnout creeps up so slowly that often we don't recognize it until someone or something makes us. If we're lucky, we have people in our lives who gently, kindly, and lovingly kind of point out that we're snapping at people or we're, overstressed or we're, distracted. But usually it's because something bad happens, like a missed deadline, a mess up on a project, an argument with someone where you say things you wish you hadn't. So just number one, naming that like burnout can be this really insidious slow burn and that it's hard to notice it because I think we have the word and it's so common that people kind of feel stupid if they're like, I didn't realize I was burned out. It's like, yeah, that's because you're basically the frog in the boiling pot of water. Like it just gets hotter by the minute. You didn't get tossed into boiling water. So one of the strategies that I learned about that I love is called the Eisenhower matrix. And legend has it, it came from President Eisenhower. I don't know if that's totally true, but it's a catchy name. And basically, you kind of break on paper or on a whiteboard or something. You break a matrix into 4 quadrants, and do later, delegate, and don't do are the 4 quadrants. And basically, across one side, one axis is urgent, not urgent, and one axis is important, not important. And so basically, if something is urgent and important, do it. If something is urgent but not important, delegate. If something is important but not urgent, do it later. And if something is neither important nor urgent, don't do it. Now, I always joke with my type A's that they refuse to put anything in the don't do category. And that's one of the places we work on most. And the second most is delegate, which is something that it took me a lot of time, and I'll be totally honest, money to be able to delegate effectively and outsource well. I used to try to cut corners and either do things myself that I wasn't very good at or, learn DIY it and learn something that, I took tons of time and energy away from being a better therapist and coach to try to become a marketing expert when I really could have invested in someone. And I use the word invested intentionally. I think a lot of times we look at cost and that's all we see. But if that investment is going to yield a return for you, it actually costs less than your upfront investment. And so for me, like, I finally found someone who does my marketing and all my social media, internet, anything that is related to our public facing. And she is a dream. I never have to think about her. I would pay her, don't tell her this, more than I pay her because she just makes my life so easy. And that's what delegating effectively is. And that's really what investing is versus a cost where it's like, oh, I bought this marketing mastermind and I still haven't implemented it.
I really am so glad that you're talking about investing, and I am type A, so that last quadrant would be difficult for me, but I'm also doing better at
Yeah.
that. My team, I've empowered them to hold me accountable because this year I said it's the year of doing more by doing less. And if I try to complicate things, you have the right to say, no, we're not doing
I
that.
love that. Doing more by doing less. I'm going to steal that.
Steal it, steal away. Another thing like I said, I'm glad you're talking about investing because we have an investment guide just for that. How to delegate, but what to delegate to that makes the biggest impact for your newbie business. So if you out there listener want to download our top 5 investments to make as a new entrepreneur, you can go to flourishmarketing.co/invest. And it does cover, making marketing investments. It would be weird if it didn't, since I own a marketing company, right? That would be odd and awkward. But it does cover other things like investing in a VA, investing in your systems and processes and tools so that you can, like you were saying, Jenny, stay in your zone of genius. And by the way, that Eisenhower matrix is dope. I think like that, but then like it's supposed to be quadrants, like even quadrants probably, right? Mine is like that first do now important burning is like super long. It's like
Yep.
one rectangle on the side and then 3 teeny tiny little blocks. That's how mine looks. So
Yep.
I need to get mine a little bit more imbalanced.
Yep. That's all of us, I think. Otherwise, we wouldn't do this, right? It's not always a rewarding field to be an entrepreneur. So the fact that we are, that type A, that doer, like it's what got us here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then we need to surround ourselves with the support that can keep us here.
Yep.
Because the thing about entrepreneurship is that, yeah, great, you're an entrepreneur. You started it, but are you going to finish it? Are you going to go the long haul? Are you going to last more than the year that most businesses last? Most businesses only last for a year. If you've lasted for 3 years, you are in the top 3% of entrepreneurs. So it's like, yeah, you could be type A. I am type A. So like, I'm
Yep.
only talking about myself here. You could be type A and try to power through it and say you're going to do all the things, but you're not going to have that longevity, right? You're just going to, it'll be that one thing you did that one time as opposed to a lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of unfortunate thing. Okay. But you, my friend, are a therapist. You work in multiple different areas. Talk to us about 3 pro tips that you have from your area of expertise, in addition to the Eisenhower Matrix, that will help our empire builders scale their businesses while enjoying their entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. So, high functioning anxiety is actually something that we can use and channel towards being successful. So, anxiety can be the driving force behind our success because it pushes us to be better. But we also have to be mindful of when the anxiety is spinning instead of pushing us. So, for example, your perfectionism might tell you you can't launch until it's perfect, it's flawless, there are no holes. But every day that you wait and edit and iterate is one more day that the people who need your beautiful talents and gifts and wisdom aren't getting them and don't get to benefit. So if the anxious voices are so overwhelming that you don't have the tools to manage them on your own, find a therapist, find a coach, find some resources for high functioning anxiety, because we're taught as kids, especially as girls, that to keep chasing that brass ring. And when we get out of school and get into the real world, there aren't as many gold stars. There aren't as many people telling us good job. And even if we have a boss and we're not an entrepreneur, bosses tend to be like, this is what you need to do better, because that's how, corporate America is structured. There isn't a lot of validating. And so the first thing I would say is that, like, you don't have to be afraid of your anxiety, but you also can identify like where it's helping you and where it's harming you. And there's no shame in that, by saying, I got to where I am because I have that high functioning anxiety that drives me. And right now it's keeping me spinning my wheels in the mud, and I need to get out of this ditch and I need help. And so that,
Can you talk about what high functioning anxiety is? Is this like burnout where you might not realize you have it, or is it like, no, girl, you got it. You got it. Like, talk to me about that.
yeah. So I always joke, my clinical director at the practice is someone I've known since college. And I always joke that I'll never forgive her for being the first one to point out to me that my perfectionism and achievement was actually anxiety. And she's like, I accept that. And, I just always thought I was an achiever. I just thought I loved lists and 5-year plans and 1-year plans and 10-year plans. And I was constantly planning. And then one little thing would happen and I'd have to scrap the whole plan and start over. So high functioning anxiety is definitely something that you might not know you have. You may have called it perfectionism. You may have called it achievement. You may have called it being type A. But if it is driving you to seek that next level always, and you never get the chance to stop and celebrate your achievement in the moment, you may have high functioning anxiety. And again, it's not a bad thing. It just means that you have to counterbalance it with maybe mindfulness, maybe grounding techniques where you stay in the moment and you say, I am celebrating this. Because this is one thing I hear over and over again, and this may resonate with you and probably your listeners. How often is the expectation that we are going to achieve? So what happens is we achieve and people go, yeah, I knew you would. And then we don't achieve and we go, I'm a failure. There's no place in there where we're like, I'm amazing. Or someone says, oh, I'm so proud of you, because you were just expected to achieve over and over again. That can be high functioning anxiety, because you've spent your life just climbing the mountain and you've never stopped to celebrate. So no one else in your life has. And so you kind of reinforce that idea that there's only more, more, more. There's never being happy with what you have.
I love that breakdown, and I'm really grateful for you for pointing that out. I think a lot of our listeners are probably like, ooh, Jenny's talking about me. So if you feel like that, you might want to give Jenny a call. You might want to, especially if you're in the New York area, right?
For sure. And that's actually my second pro tip, which is ask for help. I think when we become entrepreneurs, we start out as solopreneurs and we have no idea how to ask for help. And like, your mom might be an amazing cheerleader for you in general, but if you start asking her about marketing strategies and that's not her area of expertise, at best, you're just going to get yeses without the necessary critical eye. And at worst, you're going to get someone who means well, but maybe undermines you unintentionally by asking questions that make you doubt yourself, or kind of bringing up things that make you think like, oh, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. And she certainly doesn't mean that, but she's not necessarily the person that should be your thought partner. She can be your cheerleader, but when you're really getting into the weeds about things, you want to have people that you can ask for help from. I always make this analogy that I think is very, very American. And I always say, like, think of yourself like the star pitcher on a baseball team. Pitchers only pitch. They don't run the bases. They don't play the outfield. They just pitch. And a lot of times they only pitch with one arm. So all they do is hone their craft as a left-handed pitcher. Sometimes they come in for one inning and that's their whole job. So what do? They join a team where they have an amazing catcher that they can really be in tune with. They have, outfielders that they don't have to worry about catching the ball when their pitch kind of went a little awry. Like, this is the whole point of having a team is you can't just surround yourself with people who love you. That's great. But you really have to surround yourself with people who kind of fill the gaps. You have a deficit, they have a strength, and vice versa. And then that becomes your complete team.
I love that it's like having your own personal cabinet, and I love that kind of CEO cabinet concept. And my cabinet is full of a whole bunch of people. I have my spiritual coach, I have my chiropractor, I have my business
Yeah.
coach, my massage therapist, my actual team at Flourish Marketing, my husband, right? All of these people are part of my CEO cabinet that keeps me together. And I loved also that you said mindfulness is a huge part of that because sometimes when we are asking for help, we're all over the place and we don't even really know what to ask for. So then when we go to someone who could help us, they don't even know how to help us because they can't figure out in all of our madness where to start. Right. So
Yep.
getting at least somewhat grounded helps first. And I'm sorry, I got to plug another free guide that we have for that, which is at flourishmarketing.co/recalibrate. We have a recalibration guide that walks through mindfulness techniques to help people stay grounded. Okay, Jenny, give
Yes.
me that third juicy tip you got.
Okay, have a plan, but don't be rigid. So you can intention set, you can vision board, you can write out a year-long calendar, but don't make it so granular that a single shift throws the whole thing off. Have enough structure to feel safe and to feel like you have a guiding path and you're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, but not so much that you couldn't decide to spontaneously take a weekend or a week or a month away. Or sometimes I see people who literally can't even say, oh, well, I want to go to spinning today instead of yoga because they're like, that's not on the agenda. And it like sends them into a panic. And I've seen so many entrepreneurs who think that if they account for everything, then they won't miss anything. But we can never anticipate every curveball life will throw at us. And if you have the structure, but the flexibility within it, you'll have your general guidance, but you won't be completely thrown when something unexpected happens.
Yeah, for me, actually getting overly structured stresses me out because then you are constantly rebuilding and reiterating, which takes a lot of time and emotional labor and effort to do so, rather than building flexibility into a plan. I was coaching one of my clients, and she was an analyst, and she's like, I have to have the plan. And I'm going to implement all of the things you're going to talk about. Here's my Gantt chart. And I'm like, whoa. You have to allow room for spirit to work in your life, for you to work in your life, for your own growth, which you don't really know what that growth is going to look like. You have your goals and you're moving towards a certain thing, but who you are a month from now could be kind of a different person than who you are now, and what you want then and how you want to operate and live your life and the opportunities that have presented themselves to you might be completely different. So I
Yeah.
love planning, but putting that flexibility into that plan. That's really great. Solid advice there, Jenny. So, for your clients and for yourself, as you're moving through periods of growth, periods of planning, periods of replanning and unplanning, how do you celebrate, protect, and manage your energy so that you can keep moving forward towards that best version of yourself?
I'm going to be such a therapist right now, and I'm going to say boundaries. Always boundaries.
That's okay. Almost every episode, people say boundaries. You are not alone. I hope by now, listener out there, if you haven't got that boundaries are important, Jenny's going to tell you why. Jenny?
Yep. So here's the thing. People think boundaries are to keep people out, but they're to invite people in. Because if I say, this is my line in the sand, I invite you to meet me here, then I want you to be there. This is not an ultimatum. It's not a door slamming in your face. If you either can't meet me at that boundary or you don't respect my boundary, then that is information that I need about our relationship or probably in the future lack of. I've gotten really good at saying things like, thank you so much for thinking of me, but I'm not going to be able to make it or do that or say yes to your ask. It's kind. I think boundaries are kinder than not having boundaries, because when people don't know what to expect, it feels unsafe. And so if you're always saying yes or no, or I was going to come, but then I couldn't, people don't know what to expect from you. And it's true of children, it's true of adults. We feel safest when we know what to expect. And so if I can say to you, thank you so much for thinking of me, but I'm not going to be able to make it, as opposed to I'm totally coming and then I either just ghost, or at the last minute I say I can't make it and it sounds like a flimsy excuse. I'm not showing that I respect you or myself, that I don't believe that you're going to respect me. It's messy. It's so much easier to just be direct, but direct doesn't have to be the same thing as confrontational. And I think a lot of women in particular are raised to believe that those are one and the same. So I hear over and over again, like, oh, I just hate confrontation. And it's like, that's not what conversations have to be, but it takes practice. It is a skill to be learned. And, I will be super ruthless and say that because I know my boundaries and because I know who I am, I also do like friendship energy audits on a pretty regular basis. I choose intentionally whom to surround myself with. And, if it gets to the point where someone is doing a lot of taking and not a lot of giving, then I'll have that conversation with them. And I am blessed with the skill set that I've developed as a therapist to say, I want to have a challenging conversation with you, rooted in love, rooted in caring, and rooted in wanting to have a further relationship, but saying like, this is where I'm not getting what I need. And here's where I feel that I am giving that. And I would love to invite you to meet me at that. But if you can't, like, I respect that. And I've been told that I'm the easiest person on earth to make up with, which like you'd look at me and you'd be like, I doubt that. Like, look at her. She looks like kind of a bee, but it's
Okay,
really
never have I thought that at all in my entire interaction with you. Actually, what I'm really enjoying is this beautiful red power lip you have going on.
Thank
But
you.
I'm feeling kindness and love coming from you. My goodness, Jenny, let's be a little nicer to ourselves.
Well, you know what I'll say? I bet that's because you know who you are. And so how many times have people said to you, you're intimidating? And in your head, you're like, I'm not intimidating. You're intimidated. That's not about you. That's about the other person.
That's also a very good point. I mean, and also we're sitting here and you see me from the chest up, but I'm 5'10". So I'm tall.
Mm-hmm.
And even my best friend, she's been a podcast guest already, Christy Osborne, one of my best friends, she said, oh, first time I met you, I was intimidated, like out of my mind. I'm like, really?
Yep.
She goes, yes, you're intimidating. And she does know herself very well, more than most. But I'm like, if you are now this close to me and you were that intimidated by me, I can only imagine
Right.
all the people who've never said anything.
Yeah, because I think knowing yourself and then using that sureness to communicate is very scary for people who have never learned the skill of how to communicate. And again, these sound like really broad concepts, but learning to have, I mean, it's the same thing as I'm sure your elevator pitch rolls off your tongue at this point because you know exactly what you do in your business and why. Same with me. But when I first started, I tripped over it and I wasn't totally sure what I wanted to say. Like, the thing that I think gets lost in these conversations is that this is not just an inherent skill that we have. We aren't just magic and we just know who we are and we're so confident. It was a skill that was built over time and anybody can build them. And that's what I really believe through, therapy and coaching and all the work that we do is that all of these are skills to be built. No one's inherently just magically confident, like unless you're like a mediocre white man, but that's a different conversation.
Preach on it, Jenny. Oh, I love it. I love it. One random question that came into my mind was, what is the difference between therapy and coaching?
I love that because I think it's so important. So therapy, like legally, is diagnosing and treatment planning. That is the legal definition of therapy within the definition of why it's not coaching. But my definition is that therapy often looks at people as problems to be solved and they say, okay, you're in crisis. I'm going to get you to functioning. But all of our graduate education stops at functioning. And for me, there's such a big world beyond functioning. Where do you dream? What is self-actualization for you? What is living the very best life that you can envision for yourself? And therapy, unfortunately, is limited in that if you just come and say, I want to be better, and I can't diagnose that, then I can't legally enter into a therapeutic relationship relationship with you. And that's why I really built out the coaching side of my work, because I was like, again, when I was 22, I probably wasn't diagnosable, but I needed help, and no one would, not like no one would help me, but like clinically, people were like, you don't have anything that I can diagnose you with, so I can't see you and write a treatment plan. And it's like, but I'm spinning my wheels in the mud. And so coaching for me is taking that person from the point of functioning. Maybe things are okay, but they want them to be amazing, and they deserve that.
I love that. First of all, that was the clearest definition I've ever heard for that. So kudos to you, Jenny. Love it.
Thank you.
And second of all, I love the thought, especially here where we talk about building an empire. And an empire, if you're building as an entrepreneur, is not just building that business, it's building multiple streams of income. It's building that freedom, emotional, mental, financial freedom into your life. And that's way above functioning, right? Functioning is not, you shoot. Anybody that just wants to function should not be an entrepreneur. You should just go get a job, right? Like if you just want to pay your bills and like live like easy, normal, don't be an entrepreneur. It's much more difficult than it needs to be.
Yep.
But then when you go and you're talking about that self-actualization, you're talking about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs here at the very tippy top, the people that are looking for that top point to move towards, coaching is a good option. I like that definition. I'm going to roll with that. Well, thank you. Thank you for that, Jenny. So many lovely bits of information here. So, but self-actualization. So I feel like there's a big gap for a lot of people between functioning and fully self-actualized, right? When you're just like, I am one with the universe and God and myself, like that's a lofty goal, but that's still my goal. Spiritual progression, spiritual transcendence as a human being, right? But that's, there's a lot in the middle, but there's not one way to get there. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have, the one piece of good, solid advice, like all of the other pieces of solid advice you've given so far, that would help your past self who was functioning but wanted to self-actualize, get there a little bit more quickly? The version of you who maybe it was in your 20s, maybe as a year after starting your business, who if you could just have said or known one thing, you would have been like, oh, I just saved myself 10 years.
Yep. I mean, unfortunately, I have lots of answers.
Okay, well, give me all the answers.
Yeah. But I think given what we're talking about with self-actualization, one of the things that I think we have been sold as a society is that happiness is a destination you reach and then you white knuckle it and you hold on and you don't let anything change because God forbid you don't feel happy again for a second. And people look at other people and they're like, oh, they're so fill in the blank, happy, smart, successful, pretty, as if it's just a thing you achieve and then you stay there forever like a fixed state of being. So I always make this analogy about success and happiness and satisfaction and fulfillment, like whatever you're looking for. I say, think of those things like hunger. You could be so hungry you feel like your stomach is eating itself. And you could have a meal that is the most satiating, delicious meal you've ever had, this Michelin star, like, oh my gosh, everyone on earth is like, this is amazing. And you could feel so full that you're like, I'm never going to eat again. And you know you're going to eat again. And you know what? That next meal, it probably won't be as good. But that doesn't mean that it's not a worthwhile meal. And it doesn't mean that you're never going to have another meal that's just as good or better or comparable or maybe kind of as good. Like, this is how it works. Everything is like so long term. There's so much time. And I think in the beginning, I was so focused on like snapping my fingers and doing everything right at once and perfectly, of course. And I was almost frenetic about it. And I finally realized that I can do something, have it go well, look at it, maybe think about what could have gone better, or maybe I just keep doing that. And then I add something else on. But the idea that something could feel good, and then you can just kind of back to the mindfulness thing, like kind of sit in that and celebrate it and be like, this is good. Like, we don't do that. And so really thinking about these emotions and these achievements and these metrics of success as like waves that go up and down. And sometimes they're going to be crashing and sometimes they're just going to be little baby waves, but you keep riding them.
I absolutely love that because celebrating is something I had to learn how to do. Not like I'm great at a party. Like, so if anybody has a cocktail party, birthday party, anniversary party, like not that kind of celebrating, I'm a pro at that.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about celebrating wins. And so I've talked about in other episodes, I have a win button that I press when something exciting happens. It's my own voice recorded that goes, woohoo!
I
It's
love that.
gold. It's amazing. And I sell it and it's on my desk. So it's easy to press, right? But it's also, as I was, talking and thinking through my yearly recap of 2021, I was like, oh, I found my inner monologue sounding like, oh, I didn't do that. Oh, I didn't hit that goal. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Ah, but, ah, but, ah, but, ah. And I was like, girl, you mean. You just stop. I don't know who appointed you judge and jury, but I won't talk to you no more.
Yep.
So let's talk to the nicer version. I was like, what did you do? And then I looked and I was like, well, I grew a team of 10. I made multiple six figures. I started a podcast. I ended up, my marriage is
Yeah.
great.
Let's
Like,
listen to that voice.
let me listen to that voice. And then I was feeling amazing. My body felt different. I was sitting differently in my chair. I felt differently about my outlook about the next year. I felt differently about my current present moment and my confidence and my capabilities. Celebration is huge. People put it on the back burner like it's like a attaboy, like a participation trophy is so bad. And we have this stigma of like, I want to really achieve something. So I'm not going to celebrate until I feel like I've really achieved something. Do you know that I pressed my win button yesterday because I actually got up and ate breakfast?
Amazing. I'm not sure that I can say the same for yesterday.
It's those little wins that just add up, and the celebration magnifies them and gets that motivation going, gets that willpower going, and it's free. It's the easiest thing you can do,
Yep.
right? Energy management is a free tool. You just need to work it.
I think what you just said is so, so important that I want to like dive a little bit deeply into this, which is that in therapy, one of the things we talk about most is narrative versus evidence. And people love to say like data doesn't lie, the facts don't lie. And it's like, of course it does because you attach a narrative to it. So you can go into a courtroom with the same facts and spin two different narratives. And that's what we do in our head. And you just gave a great example of I had the narrative that I hadn't done anything. Oh, wait, here are the facts. Okay, wait, now I'm going to write a different narrative about all the things I've done in 2021. And the facts don't change, but you changed how you saw them and how you reported them. And that is such an important tool for people. You know, we have this one narrative, I also talk about like the mean girl in your head who's like kind of a bee. And you're like, excuse you, who appointed you queen bee of the school? And it's like the facts stay the same, but you have to change how you see them, or at least add in a possibly alternative narrative to recognize that your brain's narrative is not the only one. There could be alternatives.
Yes, I 100% agree with what you're saying. And I think that it's really valuable, especially even if people just catch themselves, because that's the first step is catching yourself in that narrative and being able to say, okay, hold on a second. Let me make this shift and let me make this change. Absolutely. Okay, now, Jenny,
Yes.
we've gotten to the part of the interview, my favorite part, which is the journal prompt question.
Yeah.
The journal prompt question for you, listener out there, is the question that you can take away after this interview to be able to use in your own journal time, answer for yourself, explore a little bit about yourself. And Jenny has graciously volunteered to answer the question first for you. So, Jenny, are you ready for your journal prompt question?
I am ready.
Okay, wonderful. The journal prompt question for this episode is, what are my core values and am I living in alignment with them?
Yes. So my core values are authenticity, boldness, passion, potential, and results. And because they are genuine to me, I can roll them off the tongue at any time. And I think you can probably agree, authenticity and boldness, I'm probably showing up in that way right now. I've got the red lips on. I'm being very direct and honest about how I feel.
That.
Yeah. And so it really took me time to figure out what these were before I could figure out if I was living in line with them. And, going to passion and potential and results, I never really realized how different it was that I always approach situations with like, well, why not? And at first I thought it was just because I was like an oppositional kid. And I was always like, well, why not? Why can't we do it differently? And I realized that in adulthood, it's really because I believe that there's untapped potential in all of us and in situations that could lead to different results if we just thought differently about something. And I'm not saying like everything that exists has to be, burned to the ground and started over. But what if we didn't just do things the way we always did them because it's the way we've always done them? And I didn't realize how much I was struggling within structured environments where I was working for the government, or I was working in education, or I was working in, social services, because they're not really rooted in passion or potential or results. They're rooted in 150 years ago, we decided to do it this way. So this is how we do it. And I'm not that interested in your ideas about the future.
Yeah, I don't do well in those environments either. It's
Yeah,
so
I always say
funny.
I was unmanageable, which is why I'm in charge now.
I know, I'm totally unemployable at this point in time. My grandmother used to call me contrary,
Mm.
and that, but she was contrary, so it was never a put down. It was almost like, "Oh, you're so contrary,
Yeah,
you little precocious little girl."
I love it. She's like, I see you. Game recognizes game.
Exactly, exactly, and I feel like you're saying something very similar. Like, I was always like, "Well, why can't we do that?" "Well, I don't understand. I have questions."
Yep.
Excuse me." And I'm still exactly like that. My husband jokes around because he'll say something, and he knows that if I go, especially if I put my finger up,
Yeah.
I have thoughts.
Yeah. Oh my God. I think I Have Thoughts could be the name of my autobiography. I have thoughts.
I have thoughts. Actually, I think that could be the name for, we could co-author it, right?
I love it.
The Jenny section and the Alea section. We both have thoughts, actually, on
Oh.
that. I love it. I love it. Well, this has been an amazing, informative, and incredibly helpful interview. I've learned a lot. I'm going to definitely, rejigger my Eisenhower matrices and definitely look at where exactly I am on my self-actualization pathway. So thank you for that and all of the other brain gems you dropped. Make sure this is your moment to tell people where they can find you, how they can work with you, should they decide to work with you for coaching or therapy or all of the offerings that you have.
Absolutely. I loved this conversation. So, Forward in Heels is the therapy practice. It is based in New York. You do have to be a New York resident because of licensing, and it's really geared towards women. We work with men, yes, and non-binary folks, of course, but really it's to address and identify all these structural patriarchal limitations that exist in systems. So it's not about one individual, one boss, or one, colleague. It's really about like, where are the systems holding you back as women? And really, where do we kind of create macro and micro changes? So individuals seeking therapy in New York, and again, what I said before, like, I don't want to dismiss therapy as only getting you to functioning. We have lots of therapists who work with clients long-term on building out those dreams, but it really does need to start with an assessment with your therapist about whether or not you have a condition or a disorder that is diagnosable and could be treated under that umbrella. There's also a book, Forward in Heels, that I wrote a few years ago, talking about, kind of creating this best life for yourself professionally and personally, that is very much aligned with that. And from that, we also built out Do the Firework, which is a framework for companies, wellness initiatives, HR departments. And it's geared towards all people, not just women, not just marginalized folks. And really, between the Great Resignation and employers having difficulty hiring and retaining talent, never before have companies been so attuned to their employees' emotional needs, which is amazing. And so instead of like foosball tables and free beer, companies are finally recognizing that mental health care and paid leave are what really keep employees happy and productive. So Do the Firework is a framework designed by me, a clinical social worker, in response to the overwhelming challenges exacerbated by the effects of the pandemic on employees, managers, and executives. So we offer access points for every level of need, from 1-hour lunch and learns to one-day intensives to quarterly and annual support series, to mobilize everyone to be a force of supported, empowered, and equipped change agents in both their own lives and the world around them. So find us at either Forward in Heels, that's our Instagram handle, our website, forwardinheels.com, or Do the Fireworks, same Instagram, all that stuff, website. And I am Jenny Maenpaa. And you can also Google my name because there's only one of me.
I love it. And let me just make sure people know that Maenpaa is spelled Maenpaa, just in case you were wondering how
Yep.
how to find Jenny. Jenny, thank you so much for being here. This was a wonderful interview. I feel just emotionally uplifted, like I have tools. I'm inspired to go forth with the rest of my day, and I hope all of the other listeners out there are as well. So I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
This episode is brought to you by Own It, the energy-centered monthly membership program you need to build your thriving six-figure empire in 12 months without feeling burned out, overwhelmed, or lost. After having reached 6 figures in 5 months, Alea created Own It because she discovered the only way to leave a legacy of abundance is to own your business instead of it owning you. Ditch the guesswork and hustle mentality that lead to daunting 18-hour days, missed family dinners, and stress-induced rashes. In Own It, you will join a supportive community of your fellow empire builders to take a holistic, step-by-step approach to craft a flourishing business and life via proven marketing frameworks, money-making business strategy, and centering alignment techniques. To join, head over to www.flourishmarketing.co/own-it. Your life has a greater purpose beyond the struggle. Join Own It today at www.flourishmarketing.co/own-it.
Whoo-wee! Jenny was laying down the knowledge in this episode. Am I right? Such an articulate and knowledgeable and fun human being. I really enjoyed having her on the Flourishing Entrepreneur podcast. She talked about burnout being a slow creep, and you might need someone else to point out to you what exactly is happening to you if you don't know that you've creeped into burnout territory. She's also mentioning the Eisenhower Matrix, which is a great way to make decisions, and we include that link in the show notes. I talk about also how when you use the Eisenhower Matrix, you need to be able to delegate some of those decisions and those investments, and how we have a guide to help do that. Make sure you to go to flourishmarketing.co/invest to download the free guide to figure out what are some of those top investments that you should make to better delegate. I love that she talked about channeling high-functioning anxiety into productivity and asking for help, and knowing that when you ask for help, you need to be mindful on how you do that. And again, there's our recalibration guide to help you with some of those mindful techniques at flourishmarketing.co/recalibrate. That link is also in the show notes. One of my favorite things that she pointed out was friendship energy audits and doing them on a regular basis. When was the last time you really took a look at that friendship group of yours and you were able to say yay or nay to who you are surrounding yourself with in your life? Remember, those boundaries that you're setting up, those healthy boundaries, are designed to invite people and blessings in, but they also are designed to invite them out. So make sure you're setting up those healthy boundaries by doing those friendship audits. She also mentioned something that I think is super key, the difference between therapy, which gets you functioning, and coaching, which helps you self-actualize. Jenny is a coach, and so are we here at Flourish Marketing. We have our bioenergetic business coaching services that you can find at flourishmarketing.co/coaching. This episode was just chock full of lots of tangible, actionable advice that I hope that you're going to take away to self-actualize and flourish in business and life. Until next Wednesday, because we drop a new episode here on the Flourishing Entrepreneur podcast every single Wednesday, I wish you lots of love, light, and abundance. All right, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Flourishing Entrepreneur Podcast with Alea Harris. Dive into the show notes at www.flourishmarketing.co/podcast and connect with Alea at Flourishing Entrepreneur on Instagram. Vibing with what you hear? Leave a 5-star review to spread the love, and be sure to click subscribe. From the entire Flourish Marketing team, we wish you love, light, and abundance. See you next time.